Welcome back to Trek Trav. I'm Trav, and this is your Star Trek Strange New Worlds Season 1, Episode 4 review, Momento Mori. First up, we're going to do things differently. I'm not going to tell you the points of the episode. We're just going to discuss it in a spoiler-free and then finally a spoilered episode. So I will tell you when it is the spoilers, but to get right into it, this episode is what I wanted from Strange New Worlds. It was an episode which had each of the characters having their own part to play. Each of the characters growing at the same time. You had an enemy of which was truly threatening, and I was sitting there going, I haven't actually felt this sort of excited about an enemy since Q Who. It was a really, really interesting way of doing things, dealing with La'an's backstory and dealing with Pike sort of in that he's just in the very captain role. Una sort of taking a back seat. Mabanga and Chapel and Hammer and Uhura. Like, there was some really interesting pairings. Spock and La'an. It very much felt like a TNG episode where they just got all of the customers. Actually, do you know what TNG it feels like? It feels like Star Trek First Contact. Each character had a place and a purpose. And they seemed to all be doing something. And it felt really, really good to sort of have a Star Trek that did that again. Star Trek Discovery sort of very much focuses on Michael Burnham and sometimes other people help. Picard tries to focus a lot on Picard, but Strange New Worlds so far has been focused on specific people, and this one did focus more specifically on La'an, but very much felt like a TNG episode or First Contact where you had the whole cast doing something and their plots were all interwoven together. The visuals in this episode were beautiful. The enemy ships were interesting, and even the science, right down to the spatial anomaly they come up to, like even the science behind that, and even like the setup and the cunningness of the villains. It was just I honestly sat there and I went, oh, this is the best episode of the season so far. This one nails it character-wise, and it makes it quite a shame that we can't explore it too much because it might affect canon. So I'm interested to see whether they can keep up this level of momentum, maybe even getting a bit better. This is my spoiler review. This is the spoilery part where I talk about things. Like, if you don't want to hear it, go away now. Bringing back the Gorn was an interesting thing. We'd seen the Gorn in Star Trek Enterprise in the Mirror Darkly episodes, and the CGI hasn't dated well. And the Gorn from the original series certainly hasn't dated well. And the ship itself, which I was glad they did, it was kind of like the Romulans in Star Trek Enterprise. We know that the first time anyone in the show sees a Gorn or Starfleet recognizes a Gorn is in the original series in Arena. So we can't see them. We've got a lot of description of them. They're monsters, they're vicious, they eat people, they drag away. Lots of blood in this episode. The ships look primitive, but also savage. The character's reaction to learning it's the Gorn make it sound really, really, really foreboding, like, oh, this could be bad. And the whole episode is very much paying off on that tension. Like, you're building up to, first they get blindsided by the fact that they went to a planet and they just see blood everywhere. And then they get a ship approaching and it's got survivors on it. And that turns out to be a trap the Gorn wanted them to rescue, so their shields stayed down and they attacked. Like, there was an escalation of the threat within this episode, which was really, really good and really well paced. And do you know what? This episode even had a satisfying conclusion. It wasn't quick, it wasn't rushed, it wasn't singing, it wasn't Una is an Illyrian. It was very much a build to tension, to stress, and the way they ended it was really interesting. So first things first, with Laan, like we learned about a bit more about her trauma with the Gorn and how she was set alive. We see that she's not celebrating that Remembrance Day that the other crew's celebrating. And there's a darkness, and the funny thing is I actually thought her character was kind of dull. Like, oh, she's the tough woman, and you know what? You can see that she's dealing with stuff, and they play on the fact that strength is hiding a real fear that she might die at the hands of the Gorn or a bad guys. That fear and trauma, of which new people who complain about Star Trek don't like. They don't like their own trauma. And she, throughout the episode, you see her getting more tense. She sort of knows them, and then with a little sister from Spock with a mind meld, she learns that the ships are flashing each other as communication, and she manages to destroy a ship. And there's a shot where the ship's destroyed, and Laan's giving a little smirk. Like, you can see that she's devastated by what happened to her, and she's desperate to survive this interaction. In terms of Spock, there's an interesting thing that will piss off people who hate Discovery as well, was that she talked about how she lost a brother and Spock lost a sister, which is obviously Michael Burnham from Star Trek Discovery. And they're trying to create a bond through that. And I'm just going, oh, those people, they bring up Discovery, and these people, you're going to have a million comments in Facebook complaining. A million of them. Pike in this episode was very much the captain. He was taking his advice from all the specialists. He was trying to get the job done. How does he get past this? He came up with some good ideas. Spock gave him science for good ideas. You had Laan coming in and giving him going, look, we need to do this. Every character has a point. You have Una's in the hospital. She's hurt. M'Benga ends up giving her some of his blood because she doesn't want plasma so she can save another crew member. Nurse Chapel's there, and she obviously knows a bit of archaic medicine, and they make a joke about that. I thought that was sweet. She ends up having to sew up Una. Uhura and Hema, we get a lot of Hema in this episode, and you see that he's a bit gruff, but he's also sweet, and he wants to be impressed. And Uhura and him play off really well, because Uhura has, I wouldn't say she's a positive person, but she has a positive questioning personality, which I really, really enjoy. And that works well with Hema, who's just like, you need to impress me. I don't want to know fucking anything average. I want you to impress me and make me like you more. Even Ortega's, who we've had very little on, Ortega's has these quick quips, which I really like, and it's actually very similar to Sulu, but probably a little bit switched up. In that she sort of just says something, and she's like, oh, well, that's not right. Like she plays a really good sort of the normal person in the room when Pike and Spock are going, oh, we need to do this. Hold on, we can die. It's really interesting in that. And in terms of the other characters, like Chief Kyle, who runs the transporter, I feel like he's my favorite character other than like the main cast. Like, he's obviously showed up every episode. He's always just either saving the day or trying to save the day. He does a lot with a little, and I love that about him. Kind of like a Brian in TNG, which I suppose that's what it is. I very much feel this episode was the best of the season. It had all of the right bits. It built tension. It had fights. It had space battles that were intricate. It felt a little bit like Star Trek II when they went into the gas giant around the black hole. And the black hole gas giant thing was really interesting. The way they slingshotted around it, creating an echo of themselves and setting explosions, so they appeared like they'd exploded, but they hadn't actually exploded. Like, it was just really well done and really clever. And like, yes, it ended quickly, but I sort of went, oh, you know what? Some of this makes sense. My basic knowledge of science means this makes sense. And yeah, I felt like this was really good. What did you think? What did you think? Leave a comment, like, subscribe, come back for more, and make sure you follow me on TikTok, which is TrekTrav1701, because there is contact there is contact here. I also have an Instagram, which is Trek.Trav on Instagram. Just join me everywhere, and you'll see crazy, wacky things. I'll see you next week for season 1, episode 5. I'll also see you on Tuesdays for Star Trek Prodigy, and I'll see you on Sundays for random shit that I post for no apparent reason, like Star Trek Nemesis, or like or like things about gay things. We don't know. Come back.